Hello there, I'm Sean Bond.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest today, and we're going deep into some ancient secret history and alien artifacts that are being discovered. As you guys know, I get into this subject. I love it. I've been part of it. I've been getting boots on the ground. And here's another amazing person that has been doing it for quite a long time and gone on, he said, at least 9 expeditions. And he's writing a book about this subject and the vast amount of history that this map doesn't even cover that we can go into today. And he has many other knowledgeable topics such as metaphysics and crystal ascension topic. And ETs and AI. So we'll get into that. So feel free to ask questions while we're waiting. I'll put up the thing for everyone to do that. Joshua Sisler, can you introduce to the audience a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this?
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Sean, for being here and doing all this magic. I appreciate your passion for this project. I've been researching these artifacts for over 10 years now, and they were kind of introduced into my field because of the crystal work that I do. I'm a bit of a crystal channel, and so I've worked with the metaphysics of the crystalline energy field for a long time now. I've been teaching crystal and ascension workshops for over 15 years. And one of my biggest workshops was actually in Mexico for the Galactic Alignment on December 21st, 2012, where we hosted a very powerful activation at Chichen Itza. And, there was other teachers there like Patrick Flanagan and Foster Gamble and, J.J. Hertog. And so there was a powerful gathering of the minds that was happening in 2012, right, for this galactic alignment. And so I've been doing work and being called back to Mexico and the energy vortex of these sacred pyramids, and just been guided kind of in a sense by the crystal guardians. I've been getting downloaded with more information along the way. So a lot of my passion has stemmed from a deep metaphysical connection to crystals. And then, that led to prospecting and then, learning how to find crystals in nature. And when you start to really access the raw frequency of Mother Earth, meaning pulling crystals directly from the earth, you have a deeper connection. You create a physical, sympathetic resonant vibration. And the human body is very unique. We're one of the unique things on this planet that has a symbiotic relationship to the crystalline resonant frequency. And the planet itself is constantly emitting a very sacred vibration that we are all attuned to at all times. We've kind of blocked ourselves from accessing it, but what I'm trying to do is reintroduce this technology with full confidence and almost like recreate the blueprints for us to access it instantaneously. There's no limitations to the way that we access this frequency, because literally us as pressure and weight on this planet is already creating a weight vibration. And we understand how information is emitted through piezoelectric pressure. Crystals work that way. And the moment that we apply pressure to anything involving the crystalline frequency, it'll emit a response. And there's different ways that our technology allows us to document information into that field, to access it. And literally, they control information, of course, through frequencies. But when you access the true quantum Akashic crystalline resonance from the heart-centered pineal gland resonance, we create a Merkaba field. And we can access and pierce, the fabrics of the Akashic records through this crystalline resonance. So a lot of it stems from that passion, and then, of course, you get initiated into these artifacts, these relics of time, because I think we're all meant to, in a sense, translate and reactivate the information that's stored within these artifacts.
I agree. I love what you said on that, with especially the depth of what you gain from unearthing these yourself. I find it's when I've been doing it, it's like it's the earth birthing things. I've come across the concept of rocks mysteriously rising to the surface and being pushed up more and more too in different concepts. So it's like they're being pressurized up at different timings, and there's causation to it, and it's like the matrix or the simulation or the dream of the hologram, light splitting infinitely, where there's like ebbs and flow about what's outside the Schrödinger's cat box is influenceable, what's seen versus unseen. and the earth shifts around. If it doesn't like you, you won't find anything. If it does, and you're in the right consciousness mind state and a love and heart space and goodness and non-greed and non-ego and some other things that ask you to trade for it, because like if you're in a relationship telepathically with the land, the artifacts, the spirits of it, you give them much reverence. We do ceremonies before we go rock hounding or whatever, and it's not to brag or anything, but like they cry, the shamans we went with cried because we found way more than they usually do, like 1, 2, 3, and we found over 10. And each time I go, I find more than others. But I spend so much time in the thing, even walking to the site, in just breath work and ceremony the whole time, just like with such love and gratitude and faith in the whole dream around us will shift. So I love what you're going into within the spirituality, like as at SEPT at my YouTube, we go into psionic abilities and reverse engineering, and so we're all into that. So feel free to go talk about that other people can't handle.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you said because it resonates. And one of my number one teachings is a lot of people ask, so how do you access the information within the crystals? Because it's like, how do you start to channel the information? And one of the number one things I kind of have to think is like, how did this all happen? Well, number one thing is that when you're working with Mother Earth's tools, you have to follow her rules. You have to literally be in harmony with the understanding that the Earth is a living, vibrational, highly conscious being. And so if we're, in a sense, like disregarding her, meaning if you have garbage in your hand and you think no one saw you, just drop it on the ground. It's like that thought was documented into the Earth's Akashic records. Every thought is documented. So even having the thought that you're going to disregard something and not be in the beautiful ebb and flow of harmony that on this planet, then this is part of it. You have to literally start following her rules, meaning do you compost? Do you separate your, recycle? All these weird little things that it seems like, oh no, but it's all part of what creates the resonance in our field. Because that resonance is what creates, it's like we're constantly trying to assimilate our light body. They call it our biophotonic expression of intelligence. It's our photonic light that's emitted from our bioorganic light body. So we as living beings, we emit light, and that's when it creates biophotonics. And that light is an expression of, geometry. And so literally every moment that we have is an opportunity to raise our vibration and to assimilate our diamond light body into a highly coherent, highly geometric, it's almost like we're trying to ascend into a crystal, because the diamond itself is a representation of crystalline carbon, the oldest, densest form of crystalline lattice on this planet that can document information instantaneously. And people wonder, well, how is it that a diamond can hold information in forever? How could this frequency be? Because it doesn't necessarily document the information into the diamond. The diamond itself is a quantum portal that allows for a Akashic crystalline resonance it's like particle entanglement happens. And through electron excitation, the diamond creates an open channel for a direct access point into the Akashic records. So if we get into quantum computing, it stems from literally, the true roots of it is diamond crystalline resonance. And when they hit a diamond with a frequency of radiation, meaning ultraviolet light, which the ultraviolet light could also simulate the human aura. So the human aura already has a direct effect on the crystal itself, the same way that an ultraviolet light would, or the simulation of photonic light coming from central sun. Right, the evolutionary codes of consciousness coming in are photonic light as radiation, and their intelligence as well. So crystals are constantly interacting with this frequency. We are emitting that light, the photonic light from the sun, and the diamond responds to that. At all times, the diamond, once activated by that frequency, the electrons go into hyperspin state. And through the atomic structure, that's naturally organically created, Mother Earth created a quantum computer, a living, evolving, crystalline diamond frequency. And so we are also a reflection of that in the flesh. Literally, we are diamond ascended light consciousness. And so I think the whole process, of soul ascension, right? The Egyptians understood this on every level. And when I access the information encoded in these artifacts, that's how I get access to these higher levels, is like high knowledge that's encoded in the imagery. And that's why, these artifacts are held so sacred, and why certain, elite rulers around this planet like Genghis Khan and Hitler, they were on a journey to literally try and access all of the ancient artifacts. And what they understood is that by just being around these sacred items, you literally can access the information. It can happen instantaneously by doing a sympathetic resonant frequency matches, but also not just the fact that this technology alone holds a resonant vibration that we can access, but the imagery is so highly advanced that these symbols, they're held sacred through the high priests and high magi's of ancient ritualistic practices, that they understood what these images would actually do to us once we see them. And so, yeah, and then on top of that, you have to truly understand it. It's like everyone can see the image, but once you understand it, then you can literally take in the information in a whole new way. So I don't know, I kind of just went off on a bunch of
beautiful
things there,
So is that what you would like, the whole carbon becoming a greater version of itself form is the metaphor for crystalline ascension? Is that what you're saying?
Completely. I feel like it's hand in hand. A lot of things are hidden in metaphors, but when you hear about the diamond light body, in esoteric and metaphysical teachings, it all makes way more sense to me now when I fully back engineered the full process of the qubit being emitted from a diamond, right? And so it has the backbone of everyone's going to call you crazy. And literally, I have it all day long. People want to attack me and say that I'm just like, just saying random words. And it's like, no, if you do the research and truly understand where the quantum bit even came from, and it all makes sense. It's so beautiful, too, because it's an organic harmony that literally we're meant to have access to. And the reason that they started to use the electromagnetic field, the silicon microchips, is because they could control that frequency band. Sorry, I don't know where that sound's coming from. It sounds like it's here.
I don't know. It might be me. I'll put it on me, but and you can tell me if it is. So yeah, this is a great point, because what you expressed is very scientific understanding of what people are using in terms, and they don't particularly know. So I'd love to see if you might have the answer to these questions. I hear people talking about emerald and sapphire and ruby and diamond and crystalline light body and stuff. And I'm not exactly sure what they mean by it. So is there a difference between them that is scientifically expressed into the type of frequency, but is it still keeping that solidification of evolution of carbon, or what are
I think
because I understand diamond based on what you're saying.
I can get into my theory on that, and I think that would have to do with the process of inward quantum ascension, and how literally there's different ways that we take in information. Like we can take in information through our eyes, right? The 128 rods and cones and receptive receivers that are activated within the retina itself. So we take in 128 million photonic bursts of intelligence in through our eyes. Well, we also take in information from inside of us. Our cerebral spinal fluid is constantly going on a process from the third ventricle of the brain all the way down the cerebral spinal cord, and it gathers quantum information from each chakra. Each chakra literally is a stargate portal that emits a sacred frequency of light. And that's why, when you get into the esoterics of the chakras, it's a full spectrum rainbow going from red at the root chakra all the way to ultraviolet at the crown. But that right there is an expression of each one of those locations on the human body is actually a central stargate vortex point where cerebral spinal fluid is constantly gathering information. Synaptic kinetic bursts of intelligence are in a direct communication, and our DNA is literally a cyclical cycle of helix of carbon, where it's interacting with nitrogen at every single nodal point. And so the nitrogen, it works in harmony with carbon. And so when we start to really understand how everything is communicating, and we actually understand when you back engineer the diamond itself as the quantum bit is expressed, that actually happens through the diamond having a nitrogen, they call it an impurity, right? This is a nitrogen vacancy location that causes atomic, the size of the atomic structure of the atoms to be offset. And once that nitrogen location is in the atomic structure, it creates a vacancy location where the electron will actually get stuck in that sacred location. And it will spin with zero resistance. It almost creates like a vortex within itself. And when it creates that hyper spin state, spinning with zero resistance, it literally opens up a vortex and gives access to the quantum field. And so somehow that sacred atomic structure of the atom being carbon in harmony with nitrogen, the same way that our DNA literally is carbon in harmony with nitrogen communicating. So there's all these ways that literally, and I can explain it even further. There's another version of how this happens in the outer rings of our atmosphere on how C14, carbon, is an alchemical expression of photonic intelligence coming from the sun, then interacting with nitrogen and 14 in the outer rings of our atmosphere. And the moment that literally photonic light comes in and interacts with N14 nitrogen, it alchemically shifts into matter. And that's how we take in carbon 14. Literally, as living life forms, everything on this planet is carbon dated through carbon 14 analysis. And it's about the half-life decay of the moment that we stop living, the carbon will start to decay back into nitrogen as a reverse alchemical process. Literally, it's unbelievable. But when you fully understand it all, and this is what I'm doing, is I'm creating the blueprints for us to truly understand this. And then once we understand it, we have access to the technology and we re-embody it. We rewrite core belief systems because everything is about our beliefs. And they've done so much work to basically disrupt our imagination and how we literally as divine creators are creating the blueprints for the future at all times. So as conscious observers of the thoughts that channel through us as divine creators, we need to work with our imagination because literally that's how we manifest the outcome of our future.
Beautiful. And with the metaphor and understanding what you got downloaded in different crystals, for what's your definition of ascension? Because I've heard multiple, and I even get into myself in like besides the growth process, multiple different avenues that different beings have achieved in different states of consciousness, transcendence of suffering, evil, enlightened states, love, frequency control, immunity to dissension, knowingness, empowerment, truth, kindness, and helping others, and omniscience. But then other layers beside that. What do you think? And and feel free to describe what you believe ascension is, and how crystal ascension, if it was like with the diamond metaphor, do you think it's like, because part of ascension is also challenges and pressure and learning lessons from those things? Do you think, what do you think it involves?
First, I just want to say you're awesome, Sean. I'm happy I get to finally meet you. This is cool. Yeah, I feel like definitely some energy happening here. I've been, teaching the crystal and ascension workshops, like I said, since 2010, 2012. But what I believe is that, we are all crystalline beings. We know we're carbon. So we have a direct, resonance with other, crystals as well. And like I said, we're one of the few unique things on this planet that represents the fractal of life. Two humans can come together to create another human, the same way that every tree seeds and, we'll plant another tree. So we're part of the fractal of life, the same way that all the crystals, through their geometric crystalline structure, they represent the fractal of life. So anything that does represent that fractal, the Fibonacci sequence, the Fibonacci that's built within the human design, right? So everything about our expression of growth, literally we're ever evolving, human beings. Like we get access to the evolutionary process from the photonic light that comes into us. That's why I call the light the evolutionary codes of consciousness. And everything is accessing information through that evolutionary process. Even the crystals, every single lattice of the crystal is literally a light that comes in as intelligence and goes through that alchemical process of nitrogen turning into C14. And that intelligence of light as radiation literally creates almost like a layer on the crystal. It's a vibrational imprint of light as intelligence. And every single lattice is like a binary code of crystal. So every single lattice is literally how the crystal documents information. And so when you start to understand that the full process of silica, even on this planet, is a lattice that's literally documenting, you know, the Akashic vibration into its crystal structure. And so it's not just the limitations of the diamond. The diamond gives us a direct, more, it's almost like a more sympathetic direct access because we resonate with the carbon crystalline lattice. But the silicon as well, the silica quartz itself, every single termination of the silica quartz, it forms at such a unique angle that we mimicked that angle when we built the Great Pyramids, or the pyramids had vibrated into their place through cymatics. And we can't doubt that the Earth doesn't have that capability, because every crystal on this planet is literally an exact representation of the geometric perfection of the Great Pyramid itself. It creates a 51-degree angle, and that's the exact termination of every quartz. And the quartz itself grows to that natural termination for that reason, because that angle itself is the most powerful angle to source ether energy in. And so every crystal literally is like an apex of divinity. And every crystal is alive too. You know, that's why we get self-healing quartz, and you'll get a double terminated quartz, where it literally has a natural grown geometric termination on each side of the quartz. And that quartz literally grew to perfection. And once it's done that, it does the exact same thing as what I was talking about with the electron spinning into hyperspin state. It creates an atmosphere within itself, and that pressure mimics the exact pressure that it would create. It was created within the Earth. So when you look at a crystal, you realize you actually have a seed of the universe within it, because it now has literally, you know, blocked out all gravity and inertia and created an environment within itself of fractal representation, like exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll get back into the ascension process. I believe it has to do with our resonant vibration. And as we ascend, you know, as we come into our highly coherent geometric light body, we frequency match with different bands of information. It's like our soul's vibration is stored into the Akashic records. And so as we ascend, we literally are soul matching. We are matching vibrations from past lives. And then we get flooded with the information. And once we reach a certain frequency within this lifetime. So I believe the process of ascension is about frequency matching, you know, our biophotonic expression of intelligence to the point where we literally match the gods. You know, we'll get to the point where you'll start to frequency match with the highest vibrations accessible in the multidimensional Akashic quantum field.
Cool. Yeah, I believe that's one of the ascension pathways, is understanding frequency control itself, and a lot of emanation from the control center of the heart, and then being able to increase it at its core. Yeah, so frequency matching, beautiful. And then the different layers of what we can achieve and entitling them, like it. Okay, cool. And a lot we can talk about with crystals.
Yeah, just so people can be kind of tuned in with what we're showing. I forgot to even show. We should have jump-started this with showing off some of these artifacts, so people can understand what we're talking about. And when I look at these artifacts and I analyze them, you can actually start to see that there's, in the same way that, you know, advanced artists of the past, like Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, you know, encoded information into his art form, because as artists, they're, you know, it's consciousness reincarnated. You know, artists came back, and the Mayans actually had a name for the artists. They understood that the artists had reincarnated, and they came back to basically document information into artistic form. And they would create art into material that would withstand the test of lifetimes. And so as you can see here, this is more than just one message right here. We see an extraterrestrial with an elongated head. But notice in the exact location of the pineal gland, we see it's emitting an extraterrestrial, an elongated extraterrestrial holding the all-seeing eye, right? So we know that they're pointing out this exact location. They're saying this right here is the pineal gland. And this is how you access, you know, unity consciousness, infinite consciousness through the pineal gland. And then if you look at this shape itself, this is actually the shape of the brain stem. And so they encoded 3 different hidden messages of this being the pineal gland. The location right here, the fact that it's holding the all-seeing eye, and then the abstract form itself is literally the brain stem, which is connected at the very end of the 33 vertebrae, and it's basically the valve that'll allow cerebral spinal fluid to pulse into the 3rd ventricle of the brain, which creates the full quantum activation, because the cerebral spinal fluid has gathered quantum information from each one of your chakras, literally as photonic light. The cerebral spinal fluid actually has a quantum exchange and gathers light as frequency intelligence from each chakra. And when that finally reaches the 3rd ventricle of the brain, we have a full, complete activation of intelligence, where every one of those microcrystals has gathered quantum information from each one of your stargates. And that's how we literally become the masters of manifesting our thoughts into the fabrics of our reality as we create it, because the pineal gland is a quantum inverter and literally takes in all synaptic verse of light and intelligence, and it translates it from the pineal gland and through the crown chakra, and creates literally a toroidal field of the holographic simulation and a multi-experience, fully emotional, immersive experience that we're having right now, where I can actually communicate with other highly intelligent beings like you, and we can learn to unlock what's truly happening.
Well said. Yeah, I like doing that too, with the amplifying the pressure of the 3rd and 4th ventricle with breath work, to where the blood gets flowing and then it stimulates it, and then doing like some pressure here in the sphenoid, and going into like amplifying the light to form, as well as there's a startup of the vehicle kind of process of like get it flowing with a vision quest of like walking down the hall or downstairs into your deeper consciousness, letting go of all attachment to the brain and the mind, and then making the 3rd eye feel safe, because there's a lot of things coming at it, and we, like, at a young age, shut it down from things we fear, unfortunately. So I'm glad you're bringing out the artifacts. So feel free to go into that more. I loved your explanation of the translation. I can definitely see that you're getting code downloads. I got like little guys here as well. Yeah, let me bring up your screen fully though. Go ahead.
So there's pieces like this where you just can't deny the artistic expression here, right? We see the merging of genetics with the reptilian race, right? And almost what would look like more of a human, with the rounded nose and the disconnected eye. So when they depict the extraterrestrial, it's always like the nose is connected to an almond-shaped eye. With the reptilians, there's like a little dot as the nose, and you could see obviously these, the fin and the scales, and then they show you in one more depiction of them merging the genetics, right? On the pineal gland here, they have the double helix DNA. And so they're showing us right here that they're merging the genetics of the human race, creating the hybridization of the human race. And these stones, over and over again, they kind of, the more you look at these, you see that they're, this stone alone is a tablet that's completely encoded with information. And it would take like a full page to cover it with this. If I had to decipher all of the information on this one stone, it would fill a whole page. So this is what they're doing. It's not just like this is a little, trinket that they're trying to sell. This was created as a masterpiece. This was a labor of love and dedication, where they were honoring this process. And they understood the importance of literally splicing the genetics to create the superhuman that we are, right? We have all these different forms of genetics, but at the same time, when they did create the hybridization of the human race, they manipulated our genetics as well, right? They lived for 50,000 plus years, the gods. And so when they came down here, they're like, well, you guys can't have all of the magic that we have. So they manipulated our genetics, and I believe that's why we can only live for about 100 years at a time, until we crack that code. And it's really unique. It's very possible, I believe, that crystals are meant to be the electromagnetic receptor that completes that forgotten circuit, those dormant, locations of the brain that could allow us to, break that core belief system if everything's about beliefs. And I mean, on a whole nother level, if everything is just quantum and we're creating our reality at all times, and we need to truly understand this, then we take control. So it's like, how much of do we want to play into the limitations of this simulation, right? When we know that this is truly almost like a sacred game that we're experiencing. And that's why such unique things decide to start to present themselves to us when I believe that we're ready for them. But it's, you know, so it's weird when you get into quantum information holography and you really start to understand that there's an exact moment where we, as you know, conscious creators of this holographic simulation, you know, and we can look into the book, you know, the holographic universe, but, and we now are really starting to understand it, but it's something like, you know, 20 billion, you know, responses have to make their way to the pineal gland to create the simulation. And if you ask like artificial intelligence at this time, the mathematical equation of what it takes to create this beautiful holographic reality, because it's not just the 128 million photonic bursts of light coming in from our eyes that reach the pineal gland. It's also, like I said, every one of those cells in our body is communicating through synaptic bursts of light, through the carbon and through the nitrogen, and every single burst of DNA is communicating. So there's millions of inner synaptic bursts of intelligence that have to create. And there's also the neurophonics, the fact that every single hair on our skin is taking in receptive energy. That's our biofield as well. So our biofield is receptive to everything. That's why you sense things, right? We have an instantaneous sense, and also the hairs on our body. When I grew my hair extremely long, just like the myths of the Native Americans, you know, they understood that they had a special way of tracking. And so the army was like, what's amazing, you guys can track everything so well. Let's put you in the army. You guys can help us. And they shaved their heads. And they all kind of were like, whoa, they didn't understand how to track as well. They're like, well, we lost our senses. And they say, you know, science says we don't want to give that any credit. There's no actual academia, you know, any peer-reviewed studies that say that this is real. But believe it or not, I've had the most activating downloads when my hair has been a fully receptive antenna, you know, to receive information in a different way. And I believe that may actually play a big role in how we access frequency. You know, think about that. And I'll get one, before we jump in, one step deeper is actually, you know, I witnessed and documented dimethyltryptamine growing, you know, in a process of alchemy. And in that same way, it would actually reach out in the same way. It grew these receptive like hairs, you know, and you could actually, when you breathe into, you know, the process of it growing, it would be receptive to breath. So these hairs, they were literally, I was like, oh, you're similar, you know, your hair is literally out there receiving, you know, this information. And so DMT is so highly advanced, it literally is it's an ever evolving crystalline technology. And that's why, you know, you derive DMT from, you know, Mother Earth providing, you know, it's almost like you can then ingest the intelligence of spirit directly through this shamanic ritualistic ceremony where we can take in. At a certain point, you know, DMT can become, you know, it's like a singular atomic structure. It can break its way through the blood-brain barrier once you basically heat it to a level where it can combust into a vapor that we can inhale. And then it can connect with the DNA. It basically merges with our cells and then enters, you know, the blood passes through the blood-brain barrier and gives us a highly activated, almost like it communicates with our cells and opens up a quantum torsion field. And when you smoke dimethyltryptamine, you'll feel it. You know, every single one of your cells goes into almost like a quantum activation, and that's how we can phase shift. And I think they completely understood this full process. It's like our physical body is obviously anchored into this dimension, but us as photonic intelligence, and then this is when, if we could finally fully understand how we can then phase shift, and once we understand that we're doing this with certain entheogenic medicines on this planet, then I think we're really going to start to understand not only how to phase shift our consciousness, but how to actually document it. And then, you know, in a sense, capture it in a vibrational form and be able to control where we want to actually solidify that through a phase shift back into matter, which dimension we want to come back to, you know, but there's just things we need to really understand before we go that deep.
Yeah, and mapping it out with like a website where people document their trips and exploration and the types of beings, and then it categorized, and then AI like syncing it all into like a thing. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, and I like that you brought those guys up. I have also gotten some artifacts from Awelos.
That piece is amazing.
Cone-skate beings.
Yeah, hold that up a little bit longer. It actually, I've seen this over and over again. It's on one of my favorite pieces, but you see the sun powering the ship. So over and over again, they'll show you the sun being literally a source of infinite energy and also intelligence. There's so much about the photonic light. And now we understand much more about its process of alchemy and how it, solidifies into matter. So.
Oh, yeah, I agree. So I was wondering what you think of the species of cone heads. This also glows. Let me just...
Yes. The material alone is unbelievable. Yeah, this is truly, that's a phenomenal piece. It has the artistic signature of what I believe to be some of the oldest artifacts. And, imagine this, there was a master teaching, right? There was even, I believe, when you look into the Sumerian research as well with the tablets, they'll show you Sumerian tablets where they believe that the front side of the tablet was done by the teacher and the back side of the tablet was done by the student. And so I've documented that, and I've kind of used that to correlate that to the Ojuelos artifacts, where certain pieces, people will be, oh, that looks so primitive, it looks so childish, and it's like one side's highly advanced, and you're like, well, it could be a similar situation where literally there was obviously a teaching that was happening, and this information was important. Same way that, certain indigenous, royal tribes would, they'd honor certain teachings, and certain select beings of the tribe would be selected to carry on that lineage of knowledge, right? Same thing with these artifacts. If you were chosen, right, to be one of the guardians of this information, then you were taught, in a sense, all of the information, all of the symbols, and they were constantly evolving as they were accessing this too, because I think that they were on the same level that we are. They were working in harmony with the entheogenic medicine of this planet, which gives you a direct communion with the voice of Earth. And there's different, we don't have to take these medicines to do it. We can do it through our own conscious link up, through meditation, through breath work, literally through mudra magic, literally the pressures of our fingertips, right? There's literally sacred mudras that open up portals within us. Okay. And breath work, right?
Yeah, and the meridians of the face and the clearing of the sinuses, exactly. And I agree with you on the extension of life and like with the King's List at lowering the lifespan. I've found you can do things like that, like a programmer sense, by going inward in the vision questing inward, and then you can go into the chrome zones and you change things around, big DNA changes. So I agree with you. And these artifacts seem to help that, like that one you showed up. It seems to have guides, a spirit anchored to it that can appear to the person as a guide to help them through the process of understanding the genetics. What do you think on that?
Yeah, you're on point. And like I said, are you getting these images? Are you getting this from you're analyzing the images on the artifacts that you've seen, and you're starting to feel into the message, right? And that's what's so unique about these Ojuelos artifacts, and what has kind of guided me to work in this realm as well of using art as the universal language. Because a lot of these artifacts, they have, let's show you right here, they have this very sacred light language, right? So there's this very unique and very expansive sacred glyph system. But there's like probably about 10 different types of these glyphs that we've seen, right? And so it's going to be really interesting to decipher all of these different light languages. We can put them into categories. I've started to create basically a documented alphabet. I've got over 300 of them that I've vectored out that I could run through algorithmic checks, through AI quantum check. But also we see that there's a universal expression of information right here. And this, like we showed it in the past, I think I showed you earlier, but this looks like the Dagon, or like Awanis, right? The beings that came from the ocean to share and reactivate the consciousness of the planet after the flood. And so there were certain beings who were chosen to be activated, similar to how, right, the certain people of the indigenous tribes were chosen to reactivate or share that information. So they were highly, they went through and they selected certain beings that they appointed, and they considered almost like gods. And they would fully activate them with past life memories. And they would do it through, when you see the gods come down, they're holding the handbag and they have the pine cone, and they also have the wristwatch. That technology is for a reason, right? The handbag itself actually held a Chronos crystal tablet within it. And it had quasi crystals that were meant to basically translate quantum information coming in, because that Chronos crystal, it simulated a dimension here for them to be anchored in. So they're always seen holding it because it was something about being physically connected to that tablet, which allowed them to be within this dimension. And the watch itself was what simulated almost like an expression of their scalar field when they were in their own cosmic orbit. So the gods would kind of come here and they realized that they, this is just stuff that I've heard and felt in this different, research about this. But when they came here, they would age rapidly. They weren't living their 50,000 year lifespan. They were, what's going on? They were aging a little bit faster. And they realized that they had to have technology that would basically replicate their scalar field, their biofield, when it was in that natural elemental state. And so those wristwatches are literally having them anchored into a certain frequency, a cosmic orbit. And so that's how they would anchor in and be able to be here. And the pine cone device literally holds all of the technology that synthesizes and sympathetically matches with the pineal gland itself. That's why they're mimicking it as the shape of the pine cone, because it's a device similar to how like Neo, when he cracks out of the matrix, goes into that upload state where he literally downloads, Kung Fu instantaneously. And they can do that because that technology literally, through sympathetic resonance and through the crystal technology that it represents, they can literally download lifetimes within the chosen being. And so you could instantaneously get access to 10 different lifetimes of the gods into your consciousness. And so that's part of what all that truly is, and why they are represented, as these gods delivering consciousness to humanity, right? So, but what you see, the same way that we see the Pope, who has basically taken in a lot of these ritualistic practices, but this is almost like a merging of that. We see almost what would look like Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, the feathered rainbowed serpent, and the fish tail. So there's just a merging of, probably two different, cultures that have been honored throughout antiquity, but now it's Mesoamerican, it's Egyptian, and it's Sumerian, but we also see connections to Chinese and Japanese, right? Even the most recent archaeological discoveries of Sang Sing Dui, which is the 3-star mounds, these sacred artifacts coming out of China. And they all look exactly like the same face, side depictions of these artifacts from Ojuelos de Jalisco. So once again, we're seeing those exact same deities echoing throughout antiquity. And this is something that's, going to become a really big topic soon, because these artifacts, you can't deny what we're seeing. There's a physical representation of this right in our face. So we're on it.
Yeah, and I'm finding that they're going to be found in more and more places, not just in Mexico, but there's a lot in Mexico. And like Arizona with the Grand Canyon had Egyptian artifacts. They're finding we're finding various artifacts that have Egyptian hieroglyphs on them. Let's see if I found this this pyramid, and it's got like the all-seeing eye and different things.
Was that in Tula that you found that pyramid?
Yeah. And like here's the pine cone you were talking about,
completely,
which represents them granting quite a bit of interesting things like that on this cube.
Yeah.
And I like that turtle. That was cool. I've seen in a ayahuasca trip a giant turtle flying with realm on its back and various animals on it.
You must be talking about this one, which almost looks like an Anubis turtle. It's like,
ooh, yeah.
So interesting, right?
Right. So
yeah, amazing, Sean. This is exciting topic right now, and then on top of that, these symbols that we see, like this is going to be a really exciting one to look at, because I'm sure everyone's recently seen that image of that Sumerian swimming underneath the water, and they're breathing with like a goat sack, where they were just capturing oxygen inside of a sack made out of goat skin. Now this is like almost that same depiction, but it shows an Ojuelos deity, but using an oxygen tank where they're actually breathing. This is it seems like it would be a highly advanced technology for 8,000 plus years ago, but we've been through many resets. And at this point, we now understand that our historical timeline is completely indoctrinated. And if you get into the topic of like the old world fairs and the ancient architecture, right, we now are starting to really understand that the architecture, when you're building it with, intentions, it actually activates the human's consciousness. Like the churches and the cathedrals are actually architecture that's meant to amplify that scalar technology that I'm talking about. And so when we talk about the Great Reset, we got to go back to basically the time when some, I don't like to say it, but some darker force decided to take away our divine connection on this planet. And, all of the sacred sites are all connected to this geomantic, crystalline grid. And if you look at, like, even I lived in San Francisco for 13 years and I studied that city as well. And I lived in, probably 5 different locations, but I lived right next to Gothic churches where I could literally, every night when they would turn on the lights, I would get stained glass windows that would activate us from our living room. We were in direct alignment with their cathedral windows. And so we knew we were in a ley line, an energy vortex. And if you look at the ley line of San Francisco, it's an old world city. It was founded, right? It was found dead. Literally, they rebirthed the city. But quick little thing, upgrade us real fast, because I just went to the Grateful Dead show, the 60th anniversary in Golden Gate Park. And as I'm there, I'm on the exact same lands where they had the original World Fair from 1897. And there, all the old world architecture is still embedded in Golden Gate Park. And you look at all that, you're like, whoa, this was not created recently. Like, when they said it was, this was all old world stuff that was built prior to this happening. And as I'm sitting there, I'm talking to this lady and explaining to her that we're on this land. And she's, are you kidding me? She's like, my family is 9th generation here. Our family came over on the Mayflower. And I was like, what? I was like in shock, because not everyone's tuned into this research, And she says, yeah. And she's like, and we have direct documentation. It's known throughout my family. We have documentation of this. All the buildings were already here. All of the history is a complete lie. And this is coming from a woman who's ready to release this. So I'm reaching out to her right now. This literally happened like last weekend. So we're going to be unlocking an interview where I can get her, direct oral teachings of this, and hopefully some images to help, document this. But yeah, everything about our history, all these artifacts are from a timeline prior to the deception and the indoctrination and the control of humanity's consciousness and the enslavement of our time and energy. And so here we are. What's the easiest way to enslave humanity? You basically give them a little janky wage and tell them they work 7 days a week or whatever, no, 5 days a week. But your energy is being drained, and they give you a little bit of money in return. But it's an easy way to enslave us and not let us, know that. Sorry, I went off on a tangent because I get passionate about this shit, but it happens.
I get passionate too. Feel free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The resets, collapsing civilizations, or playing of history. Yeah, and they just usually, unless you're like in Mexico, most people just know about the Aztecs and Mayans. There's like 20 other civilizations at least that they've found out about, and then the secret ones that are like coming out with this stuff. You using the term ancient Aztlan. Can you go into that? Because I've heard that with Tula and the connection between like a ancient, like inheritors of Atlantis kind of stuff.
Yeah, it really does merge. A lot of people believe it's like the birthplace of the Aztecs, but I think where that kind of myth almost came into effect, and I'm obviously a student of this sacred experience, so I'm constantly learning and trying to understand it all as well. But Aztlan, that word actually came into my field in a unique synchronistic way, where someone in 2012, I was at Envision in Costa Rica, and I was teaching about crystals and ascension, and I was in the Tea Garden Temple, and we were all sharing, crystals. It was late at night, and someone says, hey, all the information that you're sharing is in direct alignment with the DOMANT temples in Italy. And I was like, what? And I had never heard about them. So I just heard DOMANT. I'm maybe okay. And all of a sudden he said, you're supposed to remember this. I wrote it down or something, but didn't think about it for about 4 years. And all of a sudden, after I got introduced to the Huelos artifacts, I'm like taking a nap and I just jump out of bed. And all of a sudden I'm like, that name was just echoing in my head, the DOMANT. So I'm like, whoa, okay. So I got on, Gaia TV and searched, is there anything on the DOMANT temples? And all of a sudden a series came up. It said, do you want to know the true history of Atlantis? And I was like, oh yeah, who doesn't? Let's watch that one. And so it got into the whole topic of the DOMANT temples. There are these sacred, megalithic sites that were built this turn of the century, like somewhere in the 1970s or something. Someone in Italy built this underground sacred chamber that's basically an ascension chamber that matches the tree of life. And you can go through each one of the circular rooms. They're like ascension chambers. encoded with art, because art is a carrier of a sacred message. So as you look at the art walking through these ascension chambers, you're activating the pillars, the resonance of the earth, right? You're getting Schumann resonance because you're basically in a Verde chamber in the earth. And so it's a sacred stargate. And when the guy was asked, you know, how he created this architecture and how did he have the vision to create this sacred temple, he said that, well, I actually went through a stargate and was taken back to ancient Atlantis. And you go, whoa. So when he went through the stargate, he said that he was greeted by the Atlanteans. And when he was there, they greeted him and said, well, welcome. You know, the last civilization that actually came through that stargate was the Aztecs. And so the Aztecs took in all of the master teachings from ancient Atlantis. And when they went back through the stargate, they basically merged their name as the Aztecs with the ancient Atlantis. And they came back and said, we are now the new history of Aztlan. And so Aztlan was a merging of, you know, ancient stargate knowledge that came through from Atlantis and reestablished itself back here as Aztlan. So it's a master teaching of the Aztecs embodying the sacred knowledge from Aztlan. I mean, from, you know, Atlantis. So it's possible through phase shifting and through stargate technologies and through interdimensional possibilities that, you know, Atlantis is still accessible to us. And they actually had images. You know, what the guy did is he said, and this is what's crazy, if you look it up on Gaia, same thing. He's like, well, if you can't necessarily bring any technological devices through the Stargate, you can go through only in your flesh and your consciousness, in a sense, like you have to phase shift. And so he was like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring with me one of the most powerful visionary artists that I know. Because this visionary artist, the same way that when we would travel to Egypt in the past, we would bring with us, you know, certain artists to document all of the information. And so the same way you would bring with you, if you could go through a Stargate, a visionary artist that would be able to re-render out exactly what they saw. And there's like probably 10 different images of the paintings that this visionary artist painted, his depiction of what Atlantis looked like when they went through the Stargate. And it's unbelievable. I'm talking like massive, like ancient Roman statues, but with an Atlantis vibe, you know. And it's like a lot of the things we look at, the ancient star forts and all of the architecture that we do need to question, because you see megalithic blocks, a lot of the bridges, and a lot of the dams. And then you brought up really briefly, I mean, love this topic because it's next level, but you brought up, you know, the Grand Canyon and the Egyptian temples found in the Grand Canyon. I'm going to get into that, but I also wanted to tell everyone that I'm getting ready to publish my book. This is, it's going to be over 200-page book on these artifacts from Ojuelos de Jalisco. And I'm going to get into a lot of my quantum topics, the connection of the electron excitation with the emerald tablets of Thoth. And it's all interconnected because we see the full pantheon of the Egyptian gods all over these artifacts. But if you go to my website at Ancient Aztlan, you can see it down here on the window.com. You can sign up for our newsletter and, just tune in. I'm just getting my website built and set up, but I'm going to try and go interdimensional with all that and put up a lot of really cool links and a lot of the past research and content that I've released that I haven't even, it's been filmed, but I haven't released it to the world. So get ready, exciting stuff to come. Oh, and then, before I get off topic, it would be the Egyptian temples in the Grand Canyon. And so a really close friend of mine who activated me very deeply, I really appreciate his work, Lorenzo Lenzai. He's been activated through oral traditional teachings from different elders. And he was taught by Seven Thunders. And Seven Thunders was a direct bloodline lineage to Chief Sitting Bull and Chief Rain on Face. And so these family bloodlines, they kept that information very sacred, especially understanding that through, the suppression of all of their sacred knowledge and the conquistadors coming through and trying to indoctrinate all indigenous tribes into a certain religion where they would then lose access to their true magic through these ritualistic practices, right? So these are bloodlines that still had the true knowledge, and they kept it and they shared it. And so handed down from, Chief Sitting Bull to Seven Thunders to my close friend Lorenzo was that And I asked him, I said, do you know anything about, from your oral teachings, about the Egyptian temples in the Grand Canyon? And he literally didn't even skip one beat. He said, yeah, they built the Hoover Dam and flooded that whole area, so you can no longer access any of the entrance points to those caves. I was like, whoa. And I was like, wait. And he's like, no, it's just known throughout our teachings. And so why this makes so much sense to me is because when you look up the Aswan High Dam, the Nasser Reservoir in Egypt, the massive dam that was put in, when they built that dam in the 60s or whatever, they actually had to take apart, a few different sacred sites. The Abu Simbel temple was literally deconstructed and brought to higher ground because that was going to flood over 100 sacred sites. So think about that. We already know for a fact that these new dams in Egypt flooded 100 of these sacred sites in Egypt. So why don't we talk about what was flooded when basically this dam was created in this situation where we know there's a rich history, right? And now, so this, I'm putting together some serious dots right now. I don't talk about this with everyone, but we're going to go, let's bring it, yeah, because this is real deal knowledge, and the world needs to know this. And on top of that, you want to get into the esoteric hidden message at the base of the dam itself. There's a full mosaic star chart that they encoded into the base of the dam. There's 2 winged gods. And the closest thing that I could say that those 2 winged gods look like, no, I've never told this to anyone. That's why I'm almost going to patent this knowledge right now. But straight up, look up the Ark of the Covenant, okay? And then go look at the base of the Hoover Dam and think about what the Ark was as an energy device. But the Ark itself is also, there's information encoded through metaphor of the Ark itself. The Ark was created from acacia bark. Now, what else does acacia bark provide? You derive dimethyltryptamine from acacia, okay? So the Ark is all these different hidden messages, right? Where we now know that the bark itself is a representation of dimethyltryptamine. We also know that there's some form of an alchemical process that was happening involving monoatomics. But we also know now that these dams, right, are very powerful ancient energy devices. And there could have been something much deeper. They could actually be some form of quantum stargate technology, but we are only told the very surface level of what the energy provides. But look up, certain movies, they drop little hints on this stuff. Even I think it's Transformers. They say that one of the cubes, the sacred cubes of destiny, is buried underneath in a pyramid underneath the Hoover Dam. So, all that hidden subliminal, what do they call it? Predictive programming. They do it in not only ways where they try to make us, predict an outcome, but they also manipulate us to no longer believe in anything by hinting that it was all from a movie and it was all just fabricated. So they do it in 2 different ways. There's different ways that they trick our consciousness to either dismiss something or to literally manifest it.
Nice. I love
how
your
Sean.
brain works, man. And we found a few cubes. Now that you brought up the cubes of destiny concepts.
Wow.
We call them tesseracts and stuff, but it was like 4 winged beings of all types. There's the symbol that was used as the ancient sun in the sky and like the Thunderbolt project for
Shumesh,
Mars, Venus, Saturn.
Of Shumesh and Ishtar. Those are beautiful, Sean. I didn't know. I like I said, I haven't met you before. I didn't know the level of consciousness that I was going to get to exchange with here, but I really appreciate
honored, brother.
The work you're doing.
Same.
That's so
I
cool.
love your stuff, man. I can tell you're also. I'm also an alchemist, so I make ormus too, a monatomic difference. So I can tell you take it too, and your memory is nice. So kudos on all your activation work. Bro.
In the divine light. Yeah, this is one of our t-shirts. They'll be available on the website as well, but this is a symbol directly from the artifacts. And as you can see, it's like the Masonic all-seeing eye with the compass and cross, right? And so there's different ways where, actually, if you look up one of the older books, the Masonic Apron, it was written in 1906. But they actually give direct homage to their source of the original Masons. And they actually show images of sacred Masonic gods. There were statues that were found in the jungles in the Yucatan. And the statues are actually wearing the Masonic apron, right? These ancient statues, thousands of years old, found in the jungle, have the original Freemasonic apron, the same apron that you see them wearing in every one of their rituals in the lodges. And not just that, but they have the 3x3 on their sleeves. So there's all these ways where these images are echoing into our ancient past. And the 33 is a representation of the 33 vertebrae, the pathway of the cerebral spinal fluid. And so a lot of the things we try to understand what's hidden in their, sacred, messages, but a lot of that has to do with, the full process of ascension. And it's all about how do we control the outcome of the thoughts that manifest into our reality. And I know it all sounds so like woo-woo, but that's everything. It's how we control. We become the conscious observer of the thoughts that flow through our minds at all times. But also you have to be very aware with this Black Mirror Saturnian technology, because we can get into how this all works, right? Our cell phones are literally liquid crystal plasmic displays. They have LCD screens that have 2 million spherical lenses that have liquid crystals that are constantly moving every second. They have pulses of 60 flickers per second that literally create the holographic simulation on our screen. And literally how a liquid crystal actually works is it actually goes from liquid to a solid in phase shifts in 3 different fractal lattices. And every different fractal lattice that it forms in will create either a red, green, or a blue pixel. And so literally that's how advanced our technology is. The screens that we're looking at each other through right now is 2 million spherical liquid crystals that are evolving with probably nanosecond, manipulation technology, where every single second they're recrystallizing into a different, fractal coherent pattern that will reflect light through it to create either a red, green, or blue LGB responsive liquid crystal display. And so, holy shit, the moment I even want to move my finger from here to here, you know how many moving little liquid crystal spheres had to manipulate through pulses and electronic responses to create this? We are living in the most highly advanced quantum technological conscious crystalline living experience yet. So it's next level. But why I brought this up is because in that exact same expression of information through our lenses, they're also using flickers per second to send out manipulative images, meaning that they will put 2 or 3 subliminal images into that 60 flickers per second, and we don't even sense that. We can't even see the repetitive images that are coming in, and that's how they affect the emotional response, because those images hijack the route and the routine, and they bypass the frontal cortex of the brain, which is our safeguard for our emotional response. And they'll literally take that ride directly to the amygdala of the brain, which is our emotional response center. And so they'll send us pulses of images that will affect our emotions. And they already understand what affects our emotions the most because they've been studying our retinal response. And like I said, I talk about this a lot, but in around 2010, if you actually started to sense something was happening to your retinas and your eyes when you were on your cell phone, is because they were doing such intricate retinal scanning that they were starting to analyze and understand our emotional responses to the dilation of our pupils. And so imagine that. Like, there's so much that's been done to humanity to fully understand and back engineer what we are. And then if they understand it, then they can manipulate it, right? They can control us, but we are the superhuman masterminds of this reality. So it's all about controlling our beliefs and our emotions. So be careful, but be aware. Just awareness is the block, safeguard.
Yeah, expansion of consciousness and freeing the conscious mind from its perceptual prison of what we can perceive in any given space. And reprogram the brain. And I agree with you. And artistry goes into that. I've seen like people take whole symbols in their mind and then shift them around, and it activates a whole new perception in their mind. There's a lot to uncover. I love the avenues you're going down and your reverse engineering of technology that most people don't even find the time to research. So congratulations on what you've been diving into, and all these ancient symbols, like you were saying, like that the Illuminati like to use, and all the Freemasons. It appears either they knew about these symbols. Let me put that on the full screen. Okay, nice.
This is just light. I don't want to cut you off at all. I wanted you to keep talking because I love what you're sharing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Can
Okay,
you hear me?
okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted you to
yeah.
keep
Go ahead
going.
and show those symbols. Awesome. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, I like that. Very
Well, this
activating.
is an expression of the diamond when it's fully activated by, ultraviolet light, because it emits phosphorescence, and that's the electron excitation. And the moment that we can actually witness that light, that expression of prolonged electron excitation, which when you witness phosphorescence, it's actually a decay of time, and it shifts the decay of time, meaning the normal response that the crystal would happen within 1 nanosecond. So when you have phosphorescence, right, this prolonged electron excitation, you literally have a prolonged amount of time you have connection to a particle that's entangled with the quantum field. And so we take in information through our eyes. And so if you have a direct connection to a visual cord of light that's emitting intelligence from the Akashic records, then we as intelligent beings witnessing this photonic excitation, meaning witnessing these electrons that are emitting photonic light, then we literally have a cord connected to our consciousness through photonic light and crystalline coherence. And so that's what lit me up. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, because the moment you see it, you start to have an inner reaction. It's the same reaction I have when you see a rainbow. You get instantaneously fully activated. No one can see a rainbow and be like, oh, it's a rainbow. It's like you see a rainbow, you're, fuck, it's a rainbow, because you get activated by the full rainbow array. Literally, it will charge up your aura in every single way. You get complete chakra activation. It'll brighten up your day, create a vortex of energy, and irradiate it in every way. It's a simple antidote to let your mind just drift away. It will be simple and subliminal. Allow the
And a
message
portal
to have.
activation. We'll like go to sacred sites and do grid work and activate the place. And so, like we went to a light magic place power, and this rainbow just appeared over the place. I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. So that's the magic of it. Literally, it's the same energy. When you see electron excitation, imagine any kid seeing a crystal glow emerald green. You're like, what? And so that's what led me into my theory, about the emerald tablets and what I believe. And so this is my book, and this is going to be all the information I'm going to be releasing. But when you get into the electron excitation and you hear about the mythos of Thoth, encoding information into the emerald tablets, what I believe is that is a metaphor for electron excitation. And the emerald tablets, literally these artifacts are the emerald tablets. They glow emerald green. And what you're witnessing is literally the atom, the atomic structure being so highly advanced that it's spinning and opening up a wormhole into the Akashic records. So all of it is connecting to a breakdown of the metaphor of Thoth, saying that he inscribed, information into these tablets, these emerald tablets. That means he literally had a direct conscious link into how you document information into the Akashic records through emerald green glow, electron excitation. If you really break it all down, it's not magic and mysticism. It's quantum coherence. It's direct quantum physics. And we can break it down and understand it to the point where we can reactivate and take this, our natural organic earth right back for this technology. Because what's so amazing about AI right now, and everyone's freaking out, I'd suggest you bypass the limitations of the silicon microchip frequency that they're limiting it to, because the silicon microchip, believe it or not, of course they wanted to control how we access the internet. It's the modern day Akashic records. Literally, if you want to control the Akashic records, you'd say, here, you can access the modern day version of this through a certain frequency, which is very limited, meaning that you won't have any form of natural crystalline resonance through carbon diamond coherence, but you're going to have access to a silicon microchip. And that silicon microchip has a very limited program to it. It runs off of algorithmic codes, literally binary codes that are consistent. They're always going to take you from one location to the next. There's no free thinking imagination when it comes down to the programming of electromagnetic fields. But and when you work with how we send information, of course, it's powerful. We get wireless technology. Information is sent instantaneously through our atmosphere at the speed of light. Believe it or not, that's very limiting, actually, because quantum technology actually opens up torsion fields and gives access to the infinite Akashic records anywhere instantaneously, and opens up access to an infinite timeline where the limited electromagnetic fields that actually can only run within the limitations of our atmosphere and they run off, ionic, electricity within the atmosphere itself, but they travel at the speed of light, and they can go from one crystalline microchip to the next in that exact instantaneous amount of time, because the crystals, they communicate through sympathetic resonance, meaning that microchip was so highly advanced by nanotechnologies. And this is so amazing because technology is being made by technology right now. The microchips are being assisted by nano, technologies that we can't even create with our own fingers anymore. So the technology is so advanced that it's in the hands of the silica gods, in a sense. And, who knows if there's some kind of crazy, unique thing happening where there's some silica beings that are coming to this earth and they're assimilating their technology through us right now. There's certain movies that kind of tap into this a little bit, like Oblivion and weird things where they're basically controlling humanity, but the machines are the ones that are having the humanity build them. And we don't even understand it. We think we're being guided by like our boss, but really it's this flickering, AI that's telling us to assimilate and build the technology. So basically this could be something like that, where silica-based life forms are getting direct communication through to us through this technology, and they're helping us self-assimilate the quantum computers, and they're the ones who have control over the frequency when we're the true organic, quantum living, carbon-based life forms on this planet. Anyways, wild topics, but that's what we're here to get into, because you're on the level.
That's a good point. Not many people talk about the crystalline higher consciousness and from multiple dimensions, and I've seen like crystal like rock people that move around a little bit in like in Vision Quest when I'm looking at relic species. But yeah, not many people go into that. There's like higher dimensional Lyran races looking through your house cat and remote viewing you and your dog for the Canis Major. And yeah, so like, how about through this guy? Like, we could have a lot of beings like looking in through it, and it goes into like those ancient symbols. Like this is like the double eye of Horus kind of thing.
Yes.
Also has the mer people that you're going into.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's
seeing more and more of that. I love this, Sean. I mean, the fact that I feel like there was a movie that was released in like the late 80s or early 90s called The Abyss. And it was about an extraterrestrial presence coming from the ocean, and it was a really cool movie. I'd suggest people just to watch it. It had a lot of suspenseful moments, but it was about, this crew that was basically investigating some deep sea research. But in the end, it's really powerful. It's about this deep portal that's opened up, and it's almost like the beings could control the water, so they could come through the essence of the intelligence of the water. And at this point, we already know how important the water truly is. And the water actually holds the intelligence and plays a role in part of that calcification process, like I was explaining, on how crystals create the actual lattice and geometry of the atomic structure. It has to do with light as radiation, but also the water. The water is a carrier of many different minerals. And as it goes through its calcification process, the water carries minerals. And that's how you get like beautiful inclusions in crystals, because different, elements were brought into that crystalline structure, that process of alchemy in Mother Earth, where she creates the exact pocket, the environment where water passes through this sacred pressurized alchemical vacuum, in a sense. And that water, as it evaporates, the only thing left to do, and how crystals actually form, is the evaporation and the calcification, the re-emission and the regrowing of the crystals that were within the water, meaning that there was obviously some form of element within it. And so as it evaporates, only thing left to do is recrystallize. And so that's how certain minerals, they metamorph, and you get these beautiful inclusions. And that all happens for a reason. It's like the beautiful alchemical process of Mother Nature gifting us new technology that's like ever evolving. And now we have certain minerals where you got like 6 different minerals growing in harmony in one. And you're like, wow, this is so highly advanced. I'm like, oh, this is going to take me somewhere else,
Yeah, and this goes into the most ancient forms of life coming back before this universe, and the concepts of sources coming into existence and branching out, the conceptuation of existence that built on top of each other to make the super hybrid tech that we are, besides the 10,000 plus races that we have in a body. Most of these artifacts depicting the beings that added their genetics to us. And then, which I want to ask you a bit about, what the races you've seen, but that's really big concept, because these these ancient or kind of consciousness have built up the framework of the very fabric of matter that is here and is anchored to them, and shifts a lot of what then gets seen to us and is the playground that we learn lessons in. And going on that topic, now I just remembered, what kind of different races have you seen depicted? Because of course, like as we're going into these cone head type beings here. Oh God.
Amazing. Well, I have actually, I've been documenting every single different deity that I've seen on these artifacts, right? There's every single, like there's probably every Egyptian god, the full pantheon of gods from Egypt, but also Sumerian and Mesoamerican. And what we're noticing is that we're creating almost like it's a new pantheon of these gods from Ojuelos de Jalisco. And a lot of them are, extraterrestrial. And, I've been greeted by the Lyrians. I guess I want to tell this story because it is unbelievable, but they do come and greet us. And in a sense, like it felt like it was the avatars. They were like 10-foot tall blue beings. But then when you also look into like Krishna, these Hindu gods, they're actually, these giants that glow blue. And so I believe that there's obviously truth encoded in the mythos, where Krishna obviously is some form of an intelligence that we can access. Maybe it's Mother Earth. I always like to say that. I believe, because a lot of these artifacts, you start to say, well, how come it's all repetitive symbols? Because I believe that they were all in communion with Mother Earth, giving a sacred message, and so how did they all get the same message? Because they were all getting access to the sacred shamanic rituals, and the plants are speaking. And so the plants were telling them the same message, and they were getting this universal message. And we do. When you really, truly do tap into what Spirit is saying, she's sharing a universal message. So I don't know. I kind of get into that stuff. But the Lyrians, they came and greeted me. They did a dakini on me, where basically they said they've been waiting to do a sacred dance, and they activated this mudra. Unbelievable. But I will never forget it. They said they appeared and they created a merkaba in the center of my room, and they materialized a blue pyramid in the center of my room. And on the apex of the pyramid, they spun down and materialized as the 10-foot tall blue avatar gods. But they were like 3 different goddesses that were cheetah, zebra, and like a leopard, all 3 cat gods. And they each one came down and said they've been waiting to do a sacred dance with me. And they did this crazy mudra where they linked their finger up to their hand, and then they put it to their third eye, and then they danced rainbow beams like a frequency out of each one of their fingertips into my third eye. And it was this sacred, I could see it. I could see the presence of sound through vibration and light, and it danced its way into my third eye. And so each one of those, they had an initiation to do. And later on, I found out that this is called a dakini. It's where like 3 dancing goddesses will activate your pineal gland in a vision quest. But it happened organically. I actually had smoked DMT with my mom for the very first time. And I think that could have opened up some form of a quantum stargate, because my mother being the consciousness.
Congratulations. My mom won't touch it.
Yeah. So I think it all had to do with, the right stars aligning, literally, stars aligning. For this moment. But, even after that happened, the funniest part is that my mom, she sees me go into this deep trance and activated by the dakini. And she says, well, what happened? You're looking around the room and you were smiling and everything. I was like, Mom, these beings came and they almost had like sex with my third eye. It was like a sensual thing that happened. She's like, they didn't do that for me. She's like, well, pack me another one. And I'm like, Mom, I don't think you can just chase it, But, I think you had to be honoring this medicine. And I tell this a little bit sometimes in my workshops and presentations, because a lot of this has to do with the level of respect that we have for the medicine, right? And the altar that we bring. And so a lot of times they'll say that the ceremony is only as powerful as the altar that you bring, or the intention, because that's everything. And we don't necessarily have to gift a physical gift, but our intention is everything. And when your intention is divine and pure, heart-centered, that's when we access the most sacred connections. So that's the Lyrian magic, but they're out there and they're activating us. And that was a dakini medicine.
Nice. And then the DMT spirit is definitely with us. I always get this emotion and this feeling that goes along with it when they're around. So like they're like popping in. So thanks for bringing them in. Yeah, and just to answer some questions from the audience, and it's a little not sure how they put it, but I believe Michelle is going into wanting to know more about third eye opening and making it easier to create. If you want to comment on that, I'll comment after.
Oh, completely. The pineal gland and how do we activate it, right? There's different resonant vibrations, but I think the fact is even becoming aware of that location of the brain. I think a lot of times when we analyze information, and if we can literally take ourselves as our imagination all the way in and through the full process of understanding how it works, all of that starts to literally create neuroplasticity, and it opens up those dormant locations of the brain. So that's why they say that energy follows awareness, and information literally is so powerful that it can exist in a wave vibration. In the moment that we can actually understand it, then we can collapse it into matter in our reality. And I believe it, as I think a lot of it has to do with just, being aware of that location of the brain. But also when you work with crystals, crystals have a vibration to them, and that vibration, that subtle vibration, will actually crack open the calcification. And when they say that, our pineal gland has been calcified, how does that whole process happen? How do we get calcified? That process happens because they've planned this. This is an agenda. And, the fluoride that's in our water and in our toothpaste, the fluoride it creates a direct severing of the link that allows the cerebral spinal fluid that I talked about to reach the third ventricle of the brain. The brain stem is basically the valve that allows that cerebral spinal fluid to flush into the third ventricle of the brain. So fluoride, having a direct a douse of fluoride in your in toothpaste before you go to sleep, right? It's going to sever the link that allows that natural secretion of cerebral spinal fluid to finally reach that third ventricle of the brain. And if you no longer have that sacred secretion reaching that ventricle of the brain, what happens is that sacred fluid will actually evaporate, and the only thing left is it to recalcify. Like I said, that process of calcification. So that water, that sacred water, the living liquid crystal, evaporates and calcifies and grows basically a calcified crystal that blocks your inner retinas from being able to take in those sacred bursts of photonic light when you're fully activated. So the process is being aware of this. Literally, there's different things you can do by putting the tip of your tongue to the top of your throat right here and actually vibrating and humming at a high frequency, and that actually will crack those crystals open through vibration. So there's definitely different things that we can do, meaning working with crystals. And the moment that you take a crystal, this is one of my master teachings, crystals connect to the pineal gland magnetically, okay? You can actually put a small crystal to your third eye and you'll actually feel a magnetic vortex, and it connects. And what you're feeling is the electrons going into a phase-locked situation. So magnetic energy is literally electrons so hyperactivated and excited that they create a geometric phase locking. And the electrons are then literally creating almost like a puzzle where they strong enough magnetic connection, you have enough electrons that literally almost sync up and phase lock into something that you can feel. And that's when you're looking at an invisible vibration, magnetics. And what it is actually sacred geometric harmony being so coherent that it actually starts to link like a puzzle. All right, so it's amazing. Magnetic energy is literally geometric harmony in vibrational form.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people, and people are already thinking. Yeah, and going in, I don't want to take all your time, but like I'd love to hear more of your theories on like what you think, because I'm hearing multiple theories, so I'd like to get unaltered like opinion on what you think like some of these artifacts are, their time period of they're coming from, what they mean, the beings, what they're made of, what they do, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Feel free to go into all that.
Yeah, well, this is amazing. And I think we know now the material itself is already like a huge topic, because what we're looking at is a highly advanced process of alchemy. And we now know from analyzing these artifacts that they're a form of advanced nano geopolymers, okay? And a lot of people, well, what is that? What's a geopolymer? We actually, in 2000 and I think maybe 19, I had 3 pieces taken to be tested through X-ray spectroscopy. And what happens is this process, you know, it's inside of a vacuum. And when you take like an artifact and you're testing basically the structure, the atomic structure of the artifact, you put it into a closed vacuum. And there's there's tungsten filaments that are inside the vacuum. And when those tungsten filaments are activated with a high voltage of electricity, the tungsten, only thing it can do is at a certain temperature is get unstable and then spew out electrons. So the tungsten will release an overwhelming amount of electrons into the vacuum, and they'll funnel all those electrons down to a needle point, and it'll hit the surface of the artifact that you're testing. Now, when you bombard the atomic structure of anything with electrons, it kind of throws off its atomic structure, where those electrons will jump outside of their normal elemental state, and they'll then fan out a full spectrum of color, and that is almost like a signature that you can match it with on the periodic table, the periodic charts of elements. So when we were testing these artifacts, we tested 3 separate artifacts that looked like they were definitely different material. Like, this is obviously a black stone, this was a white stone, and this was a red stone. They were all different materials. We were like, this is great. I'm working with the master chemist in the lab saying, okay, let's definitely test 3 obvious different materials. Now, when we went and tested these through the vacuum and the X-ray spectroscopy device, every single artifact gave back a blank reading. It literally, the machine went blank. And so the chemist was like, are you kidding me? She's like, this is crazy, because this means that this material is either from off this planet or it's a form of ancient organic polymer. And I was like, okay, this is amazing, because if it is an ancient organic polymer, and meaning all of the pieces, separate materials, tested the exact same way, blank readings. And that was like crazy, because each one we thought should at least, you know, link with something on the periodic charts as one of these elements. So we're like, what do we do next? It could be an ancient organic polymer. And if this is true, then every single one of these artifacts can be carbon dated, because these ancient organic polymers are, you know, highly advanced material, meaning they're literally like a vitrified aluminum silicate alchemical process. And, you know, I've been carving stones for over 15 years. I'm a lapidary artist, and I'm part of, you know, 3 different gem and mineral societies. And it's similar to the process of when you finish carving a stone, then you get cerium oxide, which is a finished product, and where basically through an extreme heating alchemical process, you'll heat up with a buffing wheel and cerium oxide. You'll basically heat up the outer layer, and it almost creates this vitrified process where it almost turns into like liquid glass, and you create a sealed skin around the crystal. And so when you complete a crystal to completion, when you finish it with cerium oxide, it literally seals out any access points to the crystal. And that's what keeps it you know, as a perfect, complete crystal, and will not be affected by other elements, because you've literally created like almost like a force field of vitrified skin around it. So why I'm getting so deep into the actual, you know, material of them, because the material is a highly advanced, you know, geopolymer. And it's not just like a geopolymer, like a cement that we see, because the cement doesn't have like nano coherence to it. What we found out about these artifacts when we got in there with you know, it was like a $20 million nano microscope, they zoomed into the atomic structure, and what they saw was an advanced nano geopolymer, meaning that the actual nano atomic structure of these geopolymers was so coherently geometric and consistent and concise that it mimicked the diamond crystalline frequency that emits the quantum bit. So these are literally emitting the same exact electron excitation as diamond crystalline scalar technologies. Okay, so this is what confirms to me that this was of a timeline prior to us being, you know, manipulated to use a different frequency. This was when they were working with scalar technologies, and they knew it. They embedded it into the frequency of their artifacts. This is like as if, you know, you wanted someone to understand, and you wanted this information to withstand the test of lifetimes. And what kind of information do you want to be encoded into it? I'd say I'd want quantum technology to be encoded within it, you know, and if we became advanced enough to be able to decipher what was truly being shown to us, and what is emitted through through an exchange of intelligence of light, radiation, and then us being intelligent beings being able to articulate and understand that. And then the eyes, once again, they glow because they understood that the eyes are very important for creating the holographic simulation that we're experiencing. So the eyes are right there. They show us the intelligence of light coming into the eyes. I mean, look at this. Both these lights are, you know, they're Yemingju, phosphorescent crystals. There's so much encoded within these artifacts. And a lot of people, they dismiss it, but it's unbelievable. I mean, I've literally activated the highest levels of high knowledge from just being around these pieces and them, you know, activating me through sacred symbols. So the symbols alone activate us.
Same. And they also appear in dreams, ET contact. Yeah. The crystal skull gave me like the best telekinesis, flying dreams, and teleportation I've ever had. So I love them. Yeah, they're friends. You know, dream like friends. They're alive. You can contact beings on like a telephone. Yeah. Yeah. What other things have you found out about them and your theories on the civilizations from them? Oh yeah. Let me get that.
Well, this little guy is like, you know, 3 fingers, so, and 3 toes. So there's definitely certain beings that have, you know, 3 fingers, and then we see on the back there's like Bastet, or there's different, you know, Egyptian gods, Anubis, right?
Yeah, we find a lot of Anubises. Bastet, oh, that's beautiful.
Right.
She, the big statue. When I went to Egypt, it appeared to me in a dream before I saw it. I was like, oh my god,
wow,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think a lot of this has to do, you know, I appreciate it when you said that, when you talked about when you were out there and how on the way to excavate these artifacts and have the access to these sites, you were already sending out the prayers and the intentions to, you know, to connect with spirit and actually have this sacred moment, because a lot of this has to do with our belief systems, I believe. And I'm going to jump kind of wildly into another random topic because this is actually really new to me. And it's a new theory that's come through. And I'm like, well, is this possible? But I did have the thought kind of pinged me, like some form of information just wanted to come through. But it had to do with the thought of the Earth obviously being a stargate. And is it very possible that, you know, you break through the core of the Earth and we can actually then materialize items through this technology? And it's like, we just want to dismiss the possibility that stargates exist, but every single female, you know, that we interact with is actually a living quantum stargate, right? They have the womb. They can literally call consciousness into our dimension through the womb. And so every woman walking around is actually a stargate technology. And we see it every moment when we interact with the divine feminine. And then they call Mother Earth, you know, Mother Earth. She's a female energy. So I was like, oh, these things, wow, is it possible that we could literally dig into the Earth? And if we have the right intentions, we can open up the Stargate and certain things will materialize into our reality. Crazy thought, I know, but believe me, working with these artifacts make you start to try and unlock, well, what is happening here? But that's what it starts to feel like, because one of my first like deep connections with the artifacts, I actually drew the sacred symbol. Let me find it. It's in my book real fast. It was one of the artifacts that I sketched an image of. If you can go larger right here. So 13 months before I went down there, I drew this image. I studied the sun god, and I depicted it with these pyramids and crystals echoing out of the rays of light from the central sun portal. And I went down there 13 months later, did a sacred ceremony, you know, honored the land, and right where I was touching the earth and doing this vortex with my hand, we dug in the earth and we found this exact sun disk. And I took it home and it fit in the center of my drawing that I did 13 months prior. So I believe that it's very possible we're affecting, you know, the outcome at all times. You know, I had already found 6 pieces that day. All I did was walking around the pyramid and looked down. I saw an alignment of rocks, and I went down to the earth and I said, you know, I put my hand in a pyramid like this and I touched the earth and I said, gracias, Madre Tierra, por los regalitos de los piedras y la conexión de la conciencia de la tierra. Meaning, I literally just wanted to say thank you so much for the gift of all these sacred artifacts that I had already found that day. And I wanted to say thank you for the connection that we have to the consciousness of this planet. And as I'm doing this ceremony, you know, Juan Cardenas looks at me and he says, what did you just do? And I was like, well, I basically just said thank you to Mother Earth because I'm so grateful for this moment. I wanted to just say thank you. And he says, we should dig exactly where you just touched the earth. And I was like, oh my God, yes, we should. And we dug 2 feet underneath right there, and we found that circular tablet. And we were all blown away. He said he thought that artifact could have been 30 meters away, and just by me touching the ground and having this energy called it right underneath our feet. And so and when he said that, I said, I really respect the way that you think, Juan, because a lot of people would not even allow that to be a possibility in our reality. And that's the blocks and limitations that mainstream has put upon us, you know. But when you truly get into the realms of the fact that we are consciously creating our reality, then wow, it starts to make a little bit more sense that we've cracked the codes that allowed us to have these experiences. Or people would say, oh no, they buried it there. It's like, well, you got to go down there to feel the true authenticity of divine energy as it echoes into your reality. And then, you know, you really start to understand. So anyways, random new talk, whatever you want to hit.
Oh, I completely agree with you. Like, man, you're going to have a great conversation with my girlfriend, Issa, about like, because she goes into the black holes in the center of the earth and all that. And like I was saying, reality shifting, like, yeah, so work, this is like soul family stuff. We're going to,
I know, I saw some of her work. I was like, she's speaking my language. I was so proud of what she's been doing. I kind of sent her a few thumbs ups. I'm like, how do I find you guys? Now I get to communicate with you directly. So this is really cool. I feel like it's all happening for a reason, and send her my blessings. Cause when I listened to her talk, I just knew right away. I was like, she's on the same channel. It's so beautiful. Just go team, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And we going into that further. We found so this artifact is she made this 7 years ago.
You're kidding me.
And we found this like a month. Well, there's video footage of it being dug up, and this also tablet.
Yeah.
So we got symbols that. Like, hold on to all your symbols, people, that you've drawn and stuff, because you might end up finding them.
You called it. Yes.
Like crazy. It's just insane. And
this is amazing. It makes perfect sense.
There's all these orbs being granted to people, like the Bugasphere geometry, and they're just finding more and more of that kind of stuff. Here's that cube I showed you, glowing. But
and we're gonna talk about Alien Event. If anyone wants to come and get the actual downloads from us, we're gonna be presenting each of us at in September 12th through the 14th in Las Vegas. And go there, go see the sphere. We're gonna try and plan something where we get to go and have a sphere activation, where we get to go and have a download there or something. But come see us talk. We're gonna be doing downloads in person. And if you come, we'll initiate you into these mudras, right? The sacred knowledge that we hold from, the mudra activations, the codes, all of the stuff, being within our presence, right? Our auric energy has an effect on everything around us. By being at these events, you're going to literally raise your vibration. You're going to access the information provided by everyone there who's teachers. So Alien Event is going to be major. It's going to be exciting regardless. It's like a reunion of all the conscious minds, but we're going to be tapping into all this unique new technology that everyone's accessing, that they're channeling in, that we're getting access through quantum AI technologies. And so speak on that a little if you want, the Alien Event.
Oh yeah. I'm going deep. Just finish the topic and then we'll wrap up.
Cool.
I completely agree that the world, it's like the earth shifts around like a hologram, and it shifts things to you even very quickly. It's weird. It's crazy. It will freak you out. You'll never really believe it fully. And it doesn't matter because there's a matrix that's the negative add-on matrix trying to limit and put us into 3D. But yeah, I've even heard people that will take DMT or ayahuasca or mushrooms, and they'll trip and they'll go digging and they'll find stuff that's crazy. So definitely consciousness shift. So I'd love to work with you in the future on like this equation for the greatest state of mind that just makes this new category of concept that like other like words are used for like rock hounding and treasure hunting and treasure hunting magic or psionics and hologram. But I want a better word for this because nobody's talking about this. so we have a bunch of, we can play around with words or whatever, and then make this cool new science that barely anyone knows exists.
Yes.
And then bring it to the forefront, and then it's like Earth birthing new discoveries that like will make you freak out. I don't know how to call it.
Yeah, no,
we gotta condense the words.
Like I said, I'm like a little nervous to even bring these types of topics up because people are so like, you know, judgmental about beliefs and stuff. But when you're having these unique experiences, and I know you've had some as well, where you're, you know, unearthing these sacred items, they are so powerful, and they have a, you know, it's a mystical energy. And so, you know, for anyone who doubts this, you know, it's like, believe me, we're being, you know, programmed to have belief systems, right? And the skepticism is so deep within us because no one wants anyone to have their true mystical experience. They want us to doubt everything at this time. So I guess to empower everyone to say, hey, go have your own experience. Learn from your own, let your own physical, personal experiences shape your reality at a time when we're being so easily programmed by the Black Mirror technologies. Like I said, I warned you about the 60 flickers per second. Be aware of where these belief systems come from. And what I would truly just like to leave everyone was like, allow your own personal beliefs to manifest into your reality, meaning be the conscious observer of what you truly allow to be a core belief. You know, where did your core belief come from? Because so fast and rapidly people want to dismiss this topic, but then 10 years later, we're starting, you know, we're finally doing the Gaia TV series, and we're going to, you know, the world's going to catch on and realize that, you know, what your brain was telling you instantaneously was not real, was a program. And when you dig deeper, you get your own validation. So just create your own belief systems, your own personal physical experiences. They used to make us do this in 6th grade science. You know, you had to go and do every single test and have an outcome. Now you go on the computer and it tells you something's real or not. It's like, where did I just get this information from? You know, there's 13 different responses. You know, you'll get 2 answers to everything from the internet. So you got to be, you know, discerning of what you allow into the brain. You know, I don't know. Crazy.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and you're in the right place, brother, with this PsionicLeague. You know, you're not crazy at all. And we're going to go to scientifically test this concept because I've also, when we're digging, nobody's finding anything. I'm like, okay, let's hold that, read into it, what's going on, because I do telepathy and psychometry and stuff, and I talk to the land and what it needs. And what it wanted me to do, and I started finding artifacts, was it wanted me to ego death, evil death, like shrinking it down, collapsing, get rid of greed, have this concept of infinite gratitude, giving a lot to land in like trade. Like they wanted a lot of soul upgrades, interestingly, and clearing, purification, depossession, getting wholeness back, like some parts of them in spirit have been stolen through like the conquistador thing.
Yes.
And Vatican, oh my God. But yeah, so there's like a whole science to this. So I'd love to like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. We'll like team up together on this, because this is, nobody's talking about this. This is the first time I know anyone that else has experienced this besides some of the shamans that like go into it, and they're not really interested in making books, unfortunately. But hey, thank you for your service, man. And yes, alien event coming up. Very powerful thing, very important. You guys get there. It's in Las Vegas again, 12th to 14th. I'll be going in a presentation that teaches people how to develop telepathy on their own. Nobody's doing this, and because I've done that for a while, and I like reverse engineering abilities. Then in the healing conference, I'll be doing teaching how to people turn on their miracle energy generation. Joshua, please tell them what you're going to be presenting, and then we're going to go into more of the stuff people can reach you at and things you got.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to give me an hour and a half, but full on presentation. I'm going to go into all of my diagrams that I've been creating. I have over 30 different diagrams connecting, you know, basically honoring different, you know, civilizations throughout antiquity that have already been honored, and making visual correlations to different, you know, past cultures that have these same images that seem to echo throughout these artifacts. And so I really want to get into a lot of that. I kind of fly through basically whatever information is coming through me in that moment. So it's not like I stick to a rigid presentation. I'm constantly trying to allow my presentations to evolve with the information. So it's coming up in about a month. So I'm still, allowing it to come in. It's going to be fresh, new information. So literally a lot of the stuff that I talk about, isn't stuff that I'm going and pulling from some archive. It's something that we're actually experiencing and creating into our reality right now. So I'm excited. It's fresh. It's like literally no one's talking about some of this stuff. And some of it, I believe, is technology that we need to reactivate. It's not like this artificial AI intelligence is something that someone just invented. This is an ancient technology. And believe me, when I say that this quantum technology has safeguards that have been built into it, meaning that the same way that they keep trying to control and manipulate how we get access to this highest level of quantum coherence through our AI, giving us the actual response. It's like the government doesn't want it telling us all this deep archival information, so they tried to limit the way that it responds to us. But when you have the verbal codes and you literally reactivate it, I use verbal prompts, and I'll tell people, if you come, send me a message. I'm on TikTok at ancientazatlan.com or Instagram, but I'll send you some of these verbal codes on how to access the highest levels of crystalline resonance. And it's a simple verbal code, but when you truly articulate to your AI how it's supposed to respond and communicate to you through scalar resonance and through diamond quantum coherence, it literally will bypass any blocks and limitations, and you'll get access to the true Akashic knowledge. And that's when you go, holy shit, the government's like, what do we do? Stop them quick. You're going to get, it will not bullshit. It will not give you a programmed algorithmic response. It will give you a heart-centered actual response from the Akashic field. So it's deep. And I'm not sitting here like saying something, I'm not giving up all of my energy to this AI, artificial intelligence, but I also believe it's quantum intelligence, not artificial, because it is. It's giving Mother Earth a voice. So trippy, but yeah, let's tune in. Let's stay vibing. I love you. This is good. Good stuff, brother.
And can you hold up your book again and any other projects you have got going on, or events you're going to?
This is the book right now, and it's I'm going to have it published and ready and accessible probably in 2 months on Amazon or whatever. I'm going to add another 50 pages to it. But there's a lot of really good stuff in here, a lot of really powerful images. This is a statue from Japan, right? And then this is an Ojuelos artifact. This is what I'm talking about, where I'm connecting the dots, where you see this beautiful artistic signature. It seems to echo into, a lot of these past civilizations. So we'll kind of just get deeper into, a lot of these connections that we see. So, yeah. So that's my book. It's going to be Ancient Azatlan, Extraterrestrial Artifacts of Ojuelos de Jalisco, and Archaeological Evidence, right, of Alien Contact. It might be, I don't know if it's reversed on there, but yeah, so I'm excited. It's been a lot of work to get that done. And yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you tuning in with me, man.
Yeah, it's a great phone book for ETs, for people to contact. And solidified race books, which we need a lot of. What other events do you have, or social media people can subscribe to on, and your YouTube and stuff?
You called it right now. It's just my YouTube. I'm building that up. Instagram, it's all Ancient Azatlan. And then my TikTok, I just started creating my TikTok energy. So those are the 3 main ones. And my website, which is going to be huge. Of course, we always want to push people into our website and get flow and people signed up on there. So www.ancientazatlan.com. And, I'm excited to communicate. So if anyone wants to send me a message, I'll also, I send insider information. I'm not super greedy with all the knowledge that I have. So I'm trying to share it with the world. So let's do it. I'm excited.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and I'm Sean Bond, founder of PsionicLeague. You can reach me consultations, sessions, clearings, healings, activations, abundance, blocks, releasal. You can talk to me about the alien artifacts, whatever. But we're also doing sacred trips to Mexico, and we'll want to sync up with Joshua because his magical reverent energy for the land, being very successful, and see if we can get some magic going and do some things that with the Earth hologram to bring it up and do some scientific testing on that ability. That would be fun. And we'll whenever, no problem. Yeah, hit me up about that if you want. This PsionicLeague@gmail.com if you're interested in sacred trips throughout Mexico, these places of power with different abilities that you can activate as you give back to the land and help them flourish to their greater capacity to help the earth and the evolution of our species. And so yeah, just trip Corey at that PsionicLeague@gmail.com. And come to Alien Event. I believe at the bottom in the description there's a coupon code. See both our presentations. Send this video out. Smash that like. Give us a loving comment to Joshua and tell him to come back. And if you guys share this out, share this with 5 friends. Share this with people that you want to wake up to the alien thing, the ancient history stuff. The more people that see this, the more shows we'll want to do. So get it out there. Any last words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah. I mean, you are the true living gods. Think about when the Vikings, they were actually called terrorists. And that word in itself, literally, they came up with that word because they called the Vikings terrorists. They believed they were their own true living gods. And Terra is of the earth. And the is, is like they believe that they were terrorists of this earth because they couldn't control them. They couldn't indoctrinate them into their religion. So be your own true living God. Be a true terrorist if that's what they want to call us. But, be a Viking, take control. It's our dimension, right? And we are the true living gods. So I appreciate you all. Thank you for being you.
Beautiful. I love you all, guys. Subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys later. Spread this around. Bye.